Hello, my friends. I hope you're doing great. Today, we're going to be studying a chapter in the PMBOK guide, which for many people has been a little bit confusing. I'm talking about chapter 2.4. 2.4. Not regular chapter 2 about EEFs and OPAs. Everyone pretty much is good with that. But chapter 4, by the time you start getting into chapter 4 in the PMBOK guide, chapter 2, I beg your pardon, point 4 in the PMBOK guide. When you start getting into that, it's just all over the place. It's just all over the place. So I want you to take some time out so we get rid of this 2.4, 2.42, 2.43, and then at 2.44, we begin to breathe normally again. But let us go through 2.4 because I don't like things not being organized. This chapter needs to be whipped into shape. I'm going to help you do that. All right, enough of the talk. Let's read page 42. It says, projects operate within the constraints imposed by the organization through their structure and governance frameworks. Those two words immediately begin to make you look for answers. Structure and governance framework. Hold on to that thought. Now, what do we mean by structure? Is it projectized? Is it matrix? Is it functional? Now the PMI don't say projectized anymore. I still do. They call it project oriented. I like the word projectized and I still use it. I think the word should have been kept because it is a very appropriate word. But anyway, projects operate within the constraints imposed by the organization. What constraints are we talking about? Those that are relevant to the project as a result of structure. You could have a constraint due to structure. Think about it. If you are a project manager in a weak matrix, you have constraints imposed on you on the project. You cannot manage it the same way you would in a project-oriented. Make sense? And then it says, and governance framework. Now, governance framework is a problem if you have not read ahead of this section. So let's read on page 43. What is governance framework? Governance is the framework within which authority is exercised in organizations. Governance is the framework within which authority is exercised. This framework includes, now, pay attention to this. This is where we have to bring out a whiteboard. This is where I need to write stuff out for us. Otherwise, it just remains this esoteric, nebulous idea that nobody really knows. So let's bring up a whiteboard here. And there are many different parameters to governance. And that's what I want us to look at. So let's get the whiteboard up. Okay, so in the PMBOK guide, when you talk about a governance framework, they're really talking about the rules. A governance framework needs rules to follow, organizational rules, policies. People need to be aware of those policies. Procedures, things that you need to follow to the letter. Procedures. Norms. What do we consider to be normal? What is typical in this organization? Relationships. This could be external relationships, internal relationships to the firm. These are all part of what makes up this framework. We have systems and processes as well. And I'm dishing this stuff out slow so that it can sink in. Because I don't know about you, but chapter 2, for me, it has good intent, but we need to get it straight a little bit better. All right. So governance framework, that's it. Okay. Go to page 43 again. It says governance is the framework within which authority is exercised in organizations. The framework includes, but is not limited to, rules, policies, procedures, norms, relationships, systems, and processes. It then goes further to say this framework we're looking at, this framework influences, this framework right here, it influences how the objectives of the organization are set and achieved. So, objectives, how the objectives are set and achieved. They're trying to tell you that the governance framework influences objectives. It also influences something else. The R word, risks. How risk is monitored and assessed. Risk monitoring and assessing. Think about it. Your organization's rules and their policies and procedures and their norms, it is going to affect how they perceive certain things, how they perceive the future to be. Relationships they have will affect how they perceive the future of the firm. And these rules, policies, procedures, norms, systems, and processes, many of which are project-oriented systems and processes, those will influence. So when we're talking about all this, I want you to think about the word influence. This is an influence factor. It is not an output. It is an influence. Okay? That's why certain organizations have no direction, because they are not aligned to a solid governance framework. They've got poor relationships, poor reputation in the industry, lack of policies, procedures, and rules. It's a free fall. It's a crazy country. So organizations that are like crazy country, they won't appreciate what we're talking about here because there are no rules. There's no governance. Throw governance out of the window. All right. So the last piece here that we have on page 43, it says, this framework influences how performance is optimized. So we put one more thing here, performance optimization. Again, we're talking about yet another influence here. These are all influence oriented. Influence. Okay. Don't forget that this is a section of a much wider course on the website, Praizion.com. Okay. I'm not sure how long you're going to be able to stay on for, but on Praizion.com, we have a course called PMP Exam Prep Camp. It is an online self-study course, and we go deep into this stuff. And I'm going to show you some additional graphics and ideas that will help you really grasp this. But I want you to give yourself 40 minutes to sit down and digest it, because once you do it, you don't have to go back again and again. I've gotten a lot of people tell me chapter 2 was hard. I don't want it to be hard for you. This is my gift to you. Okay, I could have put this behind a firewall, but I'm giving it to you to help your chapter 2. Okay, good. So, governance framework. Governance is the framework within which authority is exercised. So I want you to have a visual for that. So I am going to put right here a very poor visual. This very poor visual. I'm not the best artist anymore. Once upon a time, I could make very good illustrations, but not anymore, because I have not been doing it consistently. But I want to give you whatever I can. That is my daughter would laugh at this. This is meant to be a drawing of a policeman right here, to remind you that governance is the framework within which authority is exercised. So think about authority and think about exercise. There's a dumbbell. Now you'll never forget it. The framework within which the cop down the road, authority, is exercised. This is my own unique way of training this ridiculous topic. I got to give you visuals, otherwise the thing doesn't stick. You know what I mean? So I hope it's humoring you. Okay? Governance is a framework within which authority is exercised. And what does the governance framework do for you? It influences your risk monitoring and assessment, the objectives, performance optimization, choices the firm makes, so on and so forth. When we talk about performance optimization, this is right here, performance optimization. This is management's job. Management should optimize performance across the firm. Okay, but that's not all. That's not all. You see, we've barely scratched the surface, barely. Okay, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So remember where we are. We're talking about 2.4. Okay, and under 2.4, we're looking at the definition, but we're zeroing in to the very first sentence. I mean, we got like 20 sentences, no, probably 30 on this page, but I'm only taking the first one. Do you see how you need to read a section of the PMBOK guide and stall and think about it for a second? Okay, I'm not just here to dish content out. I'm here to make you see the importance of pausing for a second to think about what you just read, because it would have been easy for us. I mean, if I had just read, projects operate within the constraints imposed by the organization through the structure and governance framework. To operate, I would have just gone to the second sentence, and then you miss the essence. Wait a minute. What did they just say? See what I'm saying? Those of you who are just joining, we are on page 42 in the PMBOK guide. All right. So it goes further to say, to operate effectively and efficiently, the project manager needs to understand where responsibility, accountability, and authority reside in the organization. Again, this is one that demands a pause, because I want to illustrate for you again this important point. To operate effectively and efficiently, the project manager needs to understand this. The R for responsible, the A, which is accountable in your RACI chart, so that's going to be easy to remember, and authority. See that? What am I responsible for? What is the project manager responsible for, right? What is the project manager accountable for? Okay. And then what authority does the project manager have relative to other individuals in the organization? Okay. So I hope you get where I'm going with this. I hope it's all making sense. I'm sorry for the poor audio quality that suddenly came upon me. I think it's the positioning of my microphone. So bear with me. Okay. So what am I responsible for? What am I accountable for? Where does my authority reside? Or with whom does the authority to do X reside? Project manager should be thinking about these things. Okay. So moving right along, it says, this understanding will help the project manager effectively use his or her power, influence, competence, leadership, and political capabilities to successfully complete the project. So I hope you're following along on page 42. Okay, you can always come back, but I want you to really open up your PMBOK guide along with me. If you're watching it now and you're on the, maybe you're in a car and it's hard for you, not driving, please. If you're driving, you can listen, but don't be watching. But I really want you to think about these parameters more specifically. So come back when you can actually open the PMBOK guide along with me. So it says, this understanding will help the project manager. Oh, and for those of you speed demons, hit ×2. If you haven't by now, then maybe you're not a speed demon. Most speed demons would say, this guy's too slow, and they'd hit the ×2. Hit the ×2 because there are a lot of people who listen to me that are not English speakers. So I need to speak in such a way they can follow. All right. I'd rather you speed it up than for me to be a speed demon talking so quick and then you have to slow it down. I'd rather do it this way. All right. I can speak very fast, mind you. So this is an intentional contribution right here. All right. So these things I want you to be thinking about. This understanding of responsibility, accountability, and authority will help the project manager effectively use the pickle factor. What do I mean by the pickle? P in the pickle, pickle, right? Project manager's power, influence, competence, and leadership. Okay, that is an important pickle for the project manager. So knowing, understanding this governance framework, understanding the big picture of accountability, responsibility, and authority, where do they reside in the organization? That is going to help the project manager leverage their pickle, power, influence, competence, leadership, and you could say pickle P. Trust me to come up with a ridiculous mnemonic. The last P stands for political capabilities. And you don't want to forget about this last P. A lot of people do. In fact, this is so important, I need to put it in red. The pickle P factor. This is political. And a lot of people say in firms, oh, I don't want to be a political animal. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to be an activist. You need to take a cue from our buddy at Apple, rest his soul, Steve Jobs, who said, why join the Navy when you can be a pirate? People don't want to rock the boat. Sometimes you need to jump into that political sandbox, not in a bad way, but you need to understand how it works. Let me show you something here in chapter 3, for project managers who are not very keen on being political. I need to remind you. Let's go to page 62. Second paragraph under 3.4.4.3, it says, politics and its associated elements are not good or bad, positive or negative alone. The better the project manager understands how the organization works, the more likely he or she will be successful. And the more, I dare say, traction they will be able to have to get the required action. Sometimes you need to leverage someone else's leadership. And that is part of the political landscape. It is what it is. All right. So I hope our casual conversation, our casual banter here is helping you really get what the PMI is trying to tell you. Let's take a few steps back. We talked about governance framework, what it is, the rules, the policies, procedures, norms, relationships, and it enables the project manager. Who's this figure here? It enables you exercise authority. That's funny. Let's go back to where it was said. To operate effectively and efficiently, the project manager needs to understand where responsibility, accountability, and authority reside. This understanding will help the project manager effectively use his or her power, influence, competence, leadership, and political capabilities to successfully complete the project. The interaction of multiple factors within an organization creates a unique system that impacts the project. So think about that. Any factors. Use your imagination. Any factors, right? Any factors. But you need to imagine your project. When you think about project management, you got to be thinking about it like this. You got to be thinking about your project in a wider system. That's your project. And there are many factors bearing down on it, bearing down on it. And these, we know these chiefly as EEFs, bearing down. Remember, this could be external and this could be internal. Okay? I've got a couple of mnemonics for that if you've watched my videos for the internal, external mnemonics. But then it goes further to say, the resulting organizational system, this one where the project is being acted upon by all sorts of interactions and factors, the resulting organizational system determines the power, influence, interest, competence, and political capabilities of the people who are able to act within the system. So this is your project in this organization, okay, in this organization here, right? And they're trying to tell you that the organizational factors and this system, right? The system factors that we're talking about here, such as governance frameworks, that's the first one, management elements and organizational structure types. They're trying to say that the resulting organizational system defines basically what people can do, how they do it, their influence, their interests, their competence, so on and so forth. Okay, so the summary is the system The system, whatever that system is, excuse me, talking too much without a drink. Probably should get one. This system and how it is made up is going to impact the people and how they work. How they work. That's the summary. Okay? So it says, let's read it one more time. The interaction of multiple factors, we're on page 42 of the PMBOK guide. The influence of let me start again. The resulting organizational system determines the power, influence, interest, competence, and political capabilities of the people who are able to act within the system. The system factors include, but are not limited to, management elements, governance frameworks, and organizational structure types. So it says the complete information and explanation of the organizational system factors and how the combination of these factors impacts a project are beyond the scope of this guide. There are disciplines with associated literature, methodologies, and practices that address these factors in more depth. That's fine, but PMI, we got to finish what we started, because now you've given people some nebulous terms and they're wondering, what on earth did they just say? So I'm going to give you a visual for this. This first slab, that's your management elements. The second slab is going to be your governance frameworks. So let's just write a few things here. Management elements. Okay. Next slab, governance frameworks. And you know what the last slab is? Organizational structure types. That is our final slab. Those three things is what makes 2.4 a mystery for people, because PMI mentioned them without defining them. So when people see management elements, governance frameworks, and organizational structure types, it sounds weird. So, you know, organizational structures like matrix structures, weak matrix, strong matrix, and all that. That's really what this is. So that's off the table. You're fine with that. Governance frameworks. We've gone over this governance framework thing for the past 20 minutes. So now you've got an idea that it's the rules, the policies, the principles, you know, the relationships in the firm, all of that stuff. Remember, we've talked about it. The final piece we're going to talk about, and then I'll let you get back to your studying, is management elements. So let me show you where this is. Okay. Management elements. If you follow me to page 44, we can break these down the same way we broke down governance frameworks. So we're going to use a similar breakdown. See, that's your governance framework right there, right? Now, what do you need to know about management elements? Let's read page 44 of the PMBOK guide. It says, under management elements, management elements are the components that comprise key functions or principles of general management in the organization. The general management elements are allocated within the organization according to its governance framework. You see that again. That's why you need to know what governance frameworks mean. The general management functions in a firm, I'm paraphrasing here so you can understand, the general management elements are allocated within the organization according to its governance framework and the organizational structure type selected. Organizations don't just wake up and say, oh, I'm matrix. No, you select how the organization is structured. So it's a choice. All right, still here on page 44, it says, the key functions or principles of management include, but are not limited to. Now, this is where we need to pause for a second, go back to our whiteboard, and continue along in that vein. Continue along in this same vein. So, management elements, let's use blue so you won't forget them. Management, or mix them up rather. Management elements. Going in on the management elements. Fine. Management elements are the components that comprise the key functions, and then it goes into, say, division of work, authority given to perform work, responsibility to perform work. So you want to think about those as the work-oriented buckets. So when you talk about management elements, a lot of it is about structuring and execution of work in the firm. Okay? So, work. We're talking about division, division of the work, authority given to perform work, and last but not least, responsibility to perform the work. Okay, so when we talk about management elements, we can think about work as being one of the big chunks of management elements. And under the work bucket, we think about how the work is divided, authority, position, where the work is concerned, and responsibility to perform the work. And it says, based on skill and experience, based on such attributes as skill and experience. Okay? All right. Moving a step further here, going back into the PMBOK guide on page 44, it states, discipline of action, unity of command, unity of direction, general goals, and fair pay. And then it goes into other things on page 45, optimal use of resources, clear communication channels, right materials to the right person for the right job at the right time, fair and equal treatment, clear security of work positions, safety of people in the workplace, open contribution to planning and execution by each person, and optimal morale. So we can further bucketize all of these as follows. We can have a bucket here I'm just going to accelerate for you a little bit. In here, we have unity of command, unity of direction, okay? And then we have one that focuses more on people-oriented matters. So we have people. And where we have people, we can break them down as follows. And when you think about the people elements, one, people should be paid fairly for work performed. So we can have fair pay as being in here. Fair pay. Okay, that is one of the management elements we're talking about. Fair pay, people paid fairly for work performed. The next one that is people oriented is clarity in how they communicate. So clear communications among people. Clear communication. The next one that relates to people is fair and equal treatment. So fair and equal treatment. The next one here is clear security of work positions. So if you have studied chapter 9 already, you probably have hit Maslow's pyramid. And a lot of what we're talking about boils down to people's needing to be self-actualized, people needing to feel safe. Both the lower levels and the higher levels are part of this discussion. Did it occur to you? Anyway, that's a different topic for a different day. So, fair and equal treatment, security of work positions. So, security of work. And then we have safety of people in the workplace. And you know that safety is right there in Maslow's pyramid, isn't it? Number 2, level 2. All right. So, my friends, this is what we have talked about so far. I have shown you that management elements that the PMI is talking about here can be related to these huge buckets: work, unity, people. Now, there are a lot of other elements which I'm just going to put into an other bucket, and here they are. Now, there's one more in the people piece. I am actually going to put it here, and this is contribution to planning. Okay. Okay, so here's the picture, and let's zoom into other. So the other categories that are mentioned that I have not bucketized, we have general goals of the organization, goals of the firm, general goals, that is. So one more for the people is morale. And under other, I have goals, rights, the right to resources to the right people, of course, at the right time. So right resources to the right people. And that pretty much is a summary. There are other elements that we could extrapolate from these, but that's pretty much it. Okay. So one more time on management elements. Management elements are the components that comprise the key functions or principles of general management in the organization. The general management elements are allocated within the organization according to its governance framework and the organizational structure type selected. So again, we see these three things. Let me just show you one more time. We see these three things: management elements. The management elements being spoken about, right? The key functions of the organization. We can see it is influenced by the governance framework, right? And we can see that the governance framework is also going to prod and prompt the organizational structure type. See? And as a result of the organizational structure type, we could have that impacting that in some way. See? So the summary of all that we've been reading here today, my friends, is this. It goes back to page 42. I really want to hone in on it one more time. It says, the interaction of multiple factors within an individual organization creates a unique system that impacts the project operating in that system. The resulting organizational system determines the power, influence, interest, competence, and political capabilities of the people who are able to act within the system. The system factors include, but are not limited to, management elements, governance frameworks, and organizational structure types. Okay? Governance frameworks, that is the framework within which authority is exercised in the organization. And then we went on to talk about these specific aspects of the governance framework. We said the governance framework includes rules, policies, procedures, norms, relationships, systems, processes. It's the framework within which authority is exercised. So in order for management to exercise authority, there needs to be a framework. And that's when I drew the police officer and the dumbbells, right? So that's the framework for you to exercise authority. Okay. And then we went a step further to understand these management elements, which are here. And we went on to page 44, where management elements were explained. And it says management elements are the components that comprise key functions. So one is all about the authority, if you will, and the other is about the key functions. Management elements, this is about functions. Governance frameworks, big on the authority elements. And last but not least, the organizational structure is just that. It's the structure of the firm. Okay? And what the PMI is saying on this page is that these interactions that I'm showing you, these are the system that projects operate in. And I'm going to show you an image here to help you see this with a greater level of precision. So when you think about this system, you need to think about it like this. This system has these three factors at play: organizational structure type, management elements, and governance framework. And all of these three, their interaction, it influences power of the people, influence, interest, competence. And when I say people, I'm really keen on the project manager because that's who we are. Political capabilities of the project manager, right? This system of sorts, right? All of these three elements, or three variables, I should call them, they will determine the project manager's power, influence, interest, competence, leadership, if you will. And of course, the projects. Everything runs on this system that is formed. Okay? So again, component one, you can think about that as your governance framework. Two, you could think about that as management elements. Three, you can think about that as organizational structure. But all of these together, it creates that system. And that is what leads to your organization's culture, your organization's capability, so on and so forth. And there's a lot more to be said about this. But before we conclude, I want to show you just a little bit more information, like in plain English. All right, here we go. So governance, your governance framework is that within which authorities exercise rules, policies, procedures, norms, relationships, systems, and processes. A final thing that we should address here, just to make sure we're on the same page with it. These management elements, here they are, in plain terms. We looked at all of these. Here they are in one place, okay? And then, last but not least, we talked about organizational structure types. And your organizational structure, it's going to depend on the organizational structure types available and optimization, whatever management chooses to optimize and how. All right, so the summary is that these variables here, that determines your organizational structure type, and they are a number of variables. We don't want to go into all of them, but on the screen, here are some factors that could affect the organizational structure that you end up with. Degree of alignment with organizational objectives, specialization capabilities, and many, many more. Too many for us to go into. It's another day for that. And the organizational structure types given to us in the guide: organic, functional, multidivisional, weak, balanced, strong, project-oriented, virtual, hybrid, and PMO. And this is definitely not a time to go into these because this will take up a significant amount of time to go into. But we do cover this in our PMP exam training course. All right. Okay, my friends, we have come to the end of this section. I want to say a big thank you to you for joining. Thank you for joining. And I hope that what we have covered today helps you to better understand Chapter 2. It's a bit of a beast from 2.4. You know, someone said everything is a beast. Everything is a beast in the book. Anyway, please read the thing, okay? If you have any questions about this, drop them below. It is not exam-like hair-raising content. I want to say, oh, you really need to know this because you're going to get questions on management elements and organizational structure types and governance frameworks. Maybe not, but for those who really want to make sure they've got everything under control, I think this helps you better know the language, better bring it under control. And you know, the more abstract the language from the PMBOK guide you are comfortable with, the better your experience on the exam. That's my 2 cents. All right, thanks for joining me. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you haven't hit like, please do so because it helps other people find the videos. It's very important. Any video of mine that you watch, I would really, truly appreciate it. If you dig it, I want you to like it so other people can find it. Okay? Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.